All right. I think I'm up. What's going on, everybody? Wild day today in the NFL. A little bit of a bootleg setup for us today. It's just me coming solo. So hope everybody's doing all right. John is visiting family. I think he might join us in the comments here and there when he can, but I know he's traveling, so could be in and out. But he was visiting family. He will be back with us on Thursday. But damn, did he pick a bad time to not be available for the stream. If you pay attention to the NFL at all, you know that today has been absolutely nuts. There he is. What's going on, man? This is so far the craziest day of the 2022 offseason. And I'm not even really sure where to begin at this point. So I'll just go. I'm just going to go. And anybody, as you guys come in, as people start jumping into the room, if there's anything specific that you want to talk about that transpired today, we can absolutely do that. But other than that, I'm just going to start kicking things off. Probably the biggest news today, the biggest bomb I'll get to in a second, but the biggest news of today probably, which ends weeks and months of speculation, is what was going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, right? Now we know. He is staying in Green Bay, what presumably looks like for the rest of his career. Signed a 4-year deal with the Packers, 4 years, $200 million, $153 million in guarantees. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, the Packers were also able to get this deal in such that the cap hit for Rodgers was lowered. So that maybe gives them a little extra flexibility as far as continuing to build the team. They also franchise tagged Devonte Adams, so that remains in place. One of the deadliest quarterback receiver combos in the league is reunited for at least one more year. We'll see if the Packers can work out a long-term deal with Devonte Adams. Signing Rodgers certainly helps with that. That's the big news. The Packers, for the most part, stay intact on offense with the return of Rodgers and Devonte Adams. They already had Aaron Jones locked up. They drafted A.J. Dillon a couple of years ago, so he's still on his rookie deal. So it's going to look very much like the same Packers team that has been a perennial playoff team with Rodgers and most recently made the divisional round of the playoffs. So expectations remain high in Green Bay. For fantasy purposes, if you got Devonte Adams right now, I know his ADP is below Cooper Kupp's. I think it's below Tyreek Hill's. It might be below Justin Jefferson's and Jamar Chase's. So if you did any best balls early, if you did any drafting early at all whatsoever, maybe like a dynasty startup, if you got Adams at any type of discount whatsoever, congratulations. Pat yourself on the back for that because the safest wide receiver on the board remains the safest wide receiver on the board. And again, in January, February, and here the first week of March, again, if you did any drafting, startups, or best balls, got yourself a nice little discount on Devonte Adams. So that is the big news for today. One of the big tidbits for today. But anyway, John is in the chat with us, so hopefully he's if anybody has any questions, he can, of course, help out with that as well. Iron, what's going on? Alex, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Little bit of a bootleg setup for me on my end over here. John's the tech whiz between the two of us. I just show up and start spouting things off most of the time. But today, a little simpler, keeping things simple, but obviously the fantasy conversation doesn't have to change or be any different in any type of way. But Alex got a question about Alberto having the biggest fantasy impact with this Wilson trade. The biggest, I don't know about the biggest. I would say the biggest is, take your pick between Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Everybody on Twitter is saying Jerry Jeudy, and I still like Jerry Jeudy a lot. I do. But we don't know. We don't know yet who specifically, if between the two of those guys, will Russell Wilson develop a better rapport with. That has to play out in the offseason. Mini camps, OTAs, learning the playbook, and then, all the way up leading to training camp, not to mention whatever the Broncos do in the rest of free agency and the draft. Obviously, Could they go for a tight end? The tight end class in the draft is kind of weak outside of McBride. So Alberto could see a nice little boost, but I think the biggest winners, if it's fair to say, it's Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. In Dynasty, the buy low window has slammed shut on both of those guys. Honestly, kind of on the flip side now, it's funny how these things work, right? But if you have Sutton or if you have Jeudy, you might as well go ahead and see if anybody's willing to give you a nice little something in Dynasty for them. You can now ask for, you can ask for a big haul. There's no discount now that Russell Wilson is in Denver. But I think those two, Sutton and Jeudy, I don't want to trade either one of those. In fact, maybe you bought low, especially on Jeudy, who's a little bit younger. But I think there's a little bit of uncertainty around Jeudy coming off a down season by his expectations. But also remember, he suffered a high ankle sprain week 1 and probably wasn't the same rest of the season. So definitely excited about Jeudy. Those two, I would say, are the obvious big winners, Sutton and Jeudy. Alberto, though, I mean, look, Seattle tight ends were always a cheap option, especially in best ball, but in any redraft format in general, because Russ likes to throw to the tight end in the red zone. He has a history of doing that. So could Alberto score 6 to 8 touchdowns this year? Hell yeah. At this point, I feel like I'm almost expecting it. This is going to be a much different situation for Russell Wilson than what he had in Seattle. He gets away from Pete Carroll and the archaic play calling of the Seattle offense under Carroll. Now he gets paired with the Packers' former offensive coordinator. So have to believe there's a little bit more put on Wilson's plate as a thrower of the football now that he's in Denver and away from Pete Carroll. So I feel good about all three of these guys. I feel good about Sutton. I feel good about Jeudy and Albert. Oh, I'll just take a look really quickly at what his ADP is, but it's like, you were getting him for free before. That is now over. So let me see really quick I just want to check what Albert owes. I know Noah Fant's ADP is around like 115. That'll drop about 20 spots or so, which I don't necessarily hate, to be honest with you. Because if you're already drafting him in the 11th round, get him in the 13th when we were already expecting bad quarterback play anyway, not too bad. But Alberto on Underdog Fantasy has an ADP of 234. So about as free as it gets. That's going to jump. It's going to jump. Probably, I would say it jumps at least 50 spots, maybe more. Again, Noah Fant's ADP was 115. I don't know if Albert gets all the way up to 115 as far as ADP, but shoot, 50 spots might be conservative. That might go up. Could go up 100 spots. Let's be real. But yeah, Alberto's got tight end wand upside at this point. At a severe discount relative to ADP. So if you miss on a stud, if you miss on Travis Kelce, you miss on Kyle Pitts, you miss on Andrews or Kittle, at least for me, for best ball, that's a perfect punt play at the tight end position with Alberto. No problem taking a shot on him. So he's definitely relevant. And yeah, top 10 upside. I don't know if he's top 10 for sure, Alex. I don't know if it's like necessarily a foregone conclusion, but I have no reason to believe he can't get 8 touchdowns this year with this transaction. So Alberto's stock is rising. Noah Fant's stock is going down. But I actually, while we're on that subject, I did kind of want to talk about Noah Fant. And I prompted this question on Twitter. I haven't gotten too much engagement on it yet. But Noah Fant's ADP before today was 115. I know that because I checked it earlier. That's going to drop. That's probably going to drop. I would be willing to bet Noah Fant's ADP drops about 20 spots. I'm not afraid to take Noah Fant either, especially with this, with another baked-in discount. The thinking there is kind of simple. You were already drafting Noah Fant outside the top 100 with potential bad quarterback play. Now you might be able to get him outside of like the top 125 or the top 130 with, again, potentially bad quarterback play. It's like the situation is a wash, but the discount is going to happen. He's going to fall. So I'm not afraid to take Noah Fant either. I think both of them are decent punt plays on the position if, again, you don't get a stud. Alberto obviously is the much more enticing upside play now. There's that can't be argued, but not afraid to say Noah Fant could be an interesting bargain. It's going to be. I'm much more interested probably in best ball than I am in redraft, but you could do worse as far as punts. And yeah, John brings up Tim Patrick as well. Tim Patrick's a damn good receiver. He's absolutely a winner here. What's his ADP? I want to check that as well. Because, he'll get involved as well. There's no doubt. Tim Patrick's ADP is 170. So yeah, all these guys, I mean, look, the Broncos, the ADP of the Broncos are all going up. It's all going up. And this includes Devonte Williams, who was already a borderline first-round pick. People are probably feeling okay about that now. After just a couple weeks ago, there were whispers that Melvin Gordon was going to come back. And this was before we knew anything about Russell Wilson to the Broncos actually happening. So everyone's ADP is going up for the Broncos. So Tim Patrick, ADP of about 170. I would be willing to bet that climbs at least 10 to 15 spots, maybe 20 spots. But still, I mean, talking about a team's wide receiver 3 who is better than most teams' wide receiver 3 that you can still get probably around an ADP of 150. You could do worse. This Broncos offense is going to be good. My only, I don't want to say this is a concern. I just want to kind of call this out. Broncos have a pretty good defense in place already. So they might not need to set the world on fire from an offensive perspective every single game, but they're playing in what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is they're more on paper, a more competitive division now than the AFC West. I mean, Russell Wilson, Super Bowl winning Russell Wilson, multi-Pro Bowl selection Russell Wilson, probably Hall of Fame trajectory Russell Wilson might be the third best quarterback in this division. That also boasts Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and then not to mention the usually underrated Derek Carr. That's a damn good division. So those games will be fun. But Denver's defense is pretty strong. There might be some games where the Broncos offense doesn't have to do too much, maybe. But again, this is an offense first NFL that we live in this day and age. So splitting hairs here, or just kind of like micro analyzing the situation, probably more than I need to, but just throwing out all thought patterns out there for everybody. As far as how much would I trade for Sutton, you can certainly ask, for a first round pick at this point if you are willing to deal Sutton. I mean, if you are in a situation where you're interested in listening on offers for Sutton, I would start with 2023, Alex, at first. I would start with 2023 because we all, by all counts, every anticipation, every speculation is that this class is going to be great. The 2023 class is going to be great. It's going to be not just top heavy, but it's going to be deep. There's going to be good options up and down the board through at least the first 2 rounds of any 4-round rookie draft for dynasty purposes. I would start with the 2023 first, and see if you can get that for Sutton. Remember, Sutton's 26 years old. He's going to be 27 in October. So if you're a contender, at this point, I'd probably just hold. Like if your team's good, if your team is strong and Sutton is, say, on any given week could be your wide receiver 2 or your wide receiver 3, I'd probably just hold. Unless you're hell-bent on getting as many 2023 picks as you can, which some people are, whether they're rebuilding or not. So that's where I would start. If you can get if they don't go for it, or if nobody's going for that, because slowly but surely everybody's warming up to the idea of the 2023 class. I would start there, but the 2024 first would be fine as well. Oh, how much to acquire Sutton? Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be for Sutton to acquire him. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's going to take a first round pick, especially now. If you try to act now, um, in kind of not reaction, but to like just all the hype that's going on right now that people are surely feeling about this Broncos offense now with Russell Wilson in tow. The Sutton and Judy, the people in your leagues who have Sutton and Judy, we already know their asking price is pretty high. So I would let the dust settle on that if you're trying to acquire him a little bit. Not that that's probably going to matter much at this point because it's Russell Wilson. But yeah, you're going to have to give up a first round pick. And I would think somebody would ask for, I mean, if you have like a late first this year and somebody's willing to do that, and you can, if you can trade the 108, the 109 or later for Cortland Sutton this year, a 2022 late first this year, maybe you got to throw in something else to make it happen. If you feel like Sutton is a piece that can help you as a contending team now, I would do something like that. I'm trying to hold on to a 2023 first. I'm trying to hold on to the 2023 first. Things change, of course, in season at the trade deadline. If your team is good, at the end of the day, if your team is good and you're going for it, and you know for a fact, I'm looking at my squad and I'm like, damn, I got a top 2, I got a top 3, maybe top 4 team, or but on paper, I know I'm a contender. When push comes to shove, you should be willing to deal your first round pick. However enticing it is to keep one as good as a class as expected as 2023, if you can win a championship, go try to win the championship. So I would start with the 2022 first. I would probably try to keep my 2023 or 2024 firsts until we get into the season. I know I'm a contender. I know I have a good record. I have a good team. I'm going for it. One more receiver puts me over the top, and Sutton's still only, he'll be 27 in October. Then maybe I'm willing to offer up a little bit more. Because then we also get the opportunity. Maybe we get a 4, 5, 6 game sample size to see who's Russell Wilson, who's he jiving with, who's he got the connection with, that Tyler Lockett cerebral connection where they just each know what each other's doing and thinking on any given play. And it, the proof is in the pudding. Russell Wilson had, I think, at least 1 year, maybe 2, where throwing to Tyler Lockett, his passer rating was literally perfect. So that's maybe what I'd like. The 2022 first now, sure. A late 2022 first now, sure. Maybe you throw in a second round pick, throw in some pot sweeteners to get the deal done, something like that. But that's probably as far as I would go right now. Will the Sutton person or the Judy person go for that? I don't know. They're probably feeling themselves a little bit right now, having Sutton and Judy. But again, with Sutton being 27, if the Sutton owners team stinks outside of him, maybe they'll take that package up for, a first plus a little extra. So, and I agree with John. I think I do like Judy more than Sutton. I'm still very much a believer in Jerry Judy's talent. I think he has been a victim of a terrible circumstance his first 2 years in the league. Year 1, he was a rookie. Sutton, I think, got hurt like week 1 and missed the entire season with the ACL. Week 1 or week 2, it was early. And Judy was forced into a wide receiver 1 role as a rookie, which he did fine in, except for the fact that his quarterback situation was atrocious. And then the same thing happened last year, but on top of that, it was Judy this time who got hurt week 1. Again, another week 1 injury for a Broncos receiver. Judy suffered a high ankle sprain week 1. I think they played, it was the Giants. It was against the Giants. Missed the first month of the season, came back, Probably wasn't 100%, was dealing with bad quarterback play, victim of bad circumstances right now, or so far to this point. Now he's in his third year. He gets a massive, such a significant upgrade at quarterback. We can't even, I can't even like put into the universe how much better Russell Wilson is than Drew Lock. None of you need me to tell you that. You all know that. How much of an upgrade Russell Wilson is over Drew Lock. Judy, and Sutton, all these guys get a legitimate, actual upper echelon quarterback for the first time in their careers, most of them. I think Judy has the highest ceiling here. Still very much a believer in his talent. So this Broncos offense is going to be fun, man. It's going to be good. It's a significant upgrade. We'll see what happens if they bring Melvin Gordon back, and they could. And in fact, Melvin Gordon might be. I never want to assume, players take discounts or what they're thinking, but these were they I think they were teammates at Wisconsin. They both come from Wisconsin, right? Well, Russ played for two schools, but Wisconsin was the second of the two before he entered the NFL. But Melvin Gordon also hails from Wisconsin. So does Melvin Gordon stick around in Denver? Maybe takes a little less money because he knows he's playing for a contender, for a good team in the Broncos. Now, this is a legitimate team. Yes, they got to deal with Kansas City. Yes, they got to deal with Justin Herbert down in LA. And the Raiders made the playoffs. You gotta tip your cap to them. This is as tough a division as it gets, but the Broncos are putting themselves in a position to compete for it. Can they topple Kansas City? I don't know. Those are going to be some good games, though, between Wilson and Mahomes. But we'll see what happens. Crumbly Heads, what's going on? What'd you miss? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Busy day in the NFL. Lots of things going on. And yeah, as far as a buy low window for DK Metcalf right now, I'm just not sure that Metcalf is still only 24, right? He's still very young. I don't care if you're a contender. I don't care if you're rebuilding. I don't care what your situation is. DK fits in anybody's long-term plans. He's still only 24. He'll be 25 in December. So he will play this almost this entire 2022 season at 24 years of age. So still hasn't hit his prime. I don't know how much stock we want to put into this, but was not that bad with Geno Smith throwing him the ball. Now, Geno's probably not going to be the quarterback again this year. It's going to, in the trade, the Broncos also got Drew Lock, so he'll compete the Seahawks, got Drew Lock, so he'll compete for the starting job. We'll see how that goes. And the Seahawks are obviously now in play to draft a quarterback high. Is it Malik Willis? We'll see. Could be correct. Like, they're in position now. The Broncos gave up was it the 9th pick in the draft? So Malik Willis's stock is rising significantly, but the Seahawks have the ammunition to go and get him if that's the route that they choose to go. So I would have to imagine rookie year one Malik Willis can't be that much worse than what Geno Smith is right now, right? No disrespect to Geno Smith, but I mean, he's a journeyman backup quarterback at this point. But still, DK put up decent numbers with Geno Smith. This is not necessarily like an L, so to speak, for DK Metcalf. Still only 24 years old, still a physical specimen. 6 to 7 years of good production from him. I would say that's the low end of his potential. There could be, he's 7 to 8 more years. I would say he's fine. So yes, while this is a buy low window for DK Metcalf, somebody's going to have whoever has DK in your league is going to have not been paying attention this past year for them to give up DK for less than what he's actually worth despite this trade. You can try. Just not sure how likely that is. But by all means, hit up the DK owner, see if they're willing to talk shop. At this point, like a single first round pick, or maybe a little extra, would be I would a massive win if you were able to acquire DK in the slim event that the DK owner is down on DK as a result of this news. I'm just not sure. Like, yes, the asking price can come down a little bit, but not sure by how much. DK is still, one of the premier young upper echelon options at the wide receiver position, despite this move. So we'll see. And yeah, for anybody coming in who may have been trickling in a little bit after we kicked off, it is just me with you today. As far as showing my face, John's traveling, but he's in the chat with us. That's BMBU. That's John. He's hanging out with us today. He's visiting family. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Just so happened to miss the craziest day of the offseason so far. But it's the NFL. It's the NFL. There's going to be plenty of crazy offseason days. So there's going to be more to come as far as a million different things to talk about right here on this channel. But we can absolutely switch gears here. I can keep talking about the Broncos and the Seahawks trade if anybody wants to revisit it. If anybody's coming in later, if there's any other questions or just talking points in general you want to talk about with the Broncos and Seahawks. But Alex has a question about Gallup's trade value, so we can hit that. If Cooper's gone, and that sounds like that's going to be the case. The Cowboys are a little strapped for cash right now. It sounds like it's the most recent update that it's quote unquote likely that they release Cooper. Now, they did do some contract restructuring today with Dak Prescott and was it Martin? It was one of the offensive linemen. The Cowboys did some contract restructuring today. Just a fun little reminder that the salary cap doesn't matter. It's almost like it doesn't exist, which would then, I guess, a way to keep Cooper in that regard. But if they do release him, and it sounds like Gallup is going to get a new contract from the Cowboys, I think he's looking in the range of $10 million a year. I mean, if he's their wide receiver too, also, the Cowboys, in addition to franchise tags today, because that also happened, Dalton Schultz did get the franchise tag with the Cowboys. So Schultz remains with the team for one more year. He should be there. He will be their starting tight end once again. I think I forget what the specific update was about Blake Jarwin, but sounded like, I don't know if he had like a setback with his injury or if the team wasn't happy with the progress he's been making, whether that was in his control or not. Obviously, they didn't want to lose Schultz to free agency. Otherwise, let's put it this way. If they felt fine about Blake Jarwin moving forward, they may have let Dalton Schultz walk. But they slapped the franchise tag on Schultz. So if this is an offense of CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Dalton Schultz, I mean, I just got done talking about how Tim Patrick is one of the better wide receiver threes in the NFL. This past year, Michael Gallup may have been the best wide receiver three in the NFL. There's a deep wide receiver core in Dallas prior to Amari Cooper's potential departure. If Gallup is the team's wide receiver too, I mean, are you trying to acquire him or are you trying to test the waters and see what you can get in return? Regardless, the vibes are a little down, I think, on the Cowboys offense right now. They sputtered in the second half of the season and were not as electric as they were maybe expected to be coming into the year. Now, their defense was much improved compared to 2020. So there were times where they didn't have to do as much, but fair to say, by expectations, most of the Cowboys offense fell a little short. And Gallup himself missed a good amount of time to begin the season. Could be, now is the opportunity to try to buy low on him. I don't know if you're going to actually be able to buy low on him. But as long as Cooper's still on the team, that should keep the asking price down a little bit. Should keep it down a little bit. As far as what you would have to give up to acquire him, shouldn't it? I mean, it's not going to require a first round pick. You keep your first round picks when it comes to a player like Michael Gallup. And remember, Gallup's 26, right? It's pretty young. It's not like he's 24 and he's he's going to be the wide receiver 1B to CeeDee Lamb's 1A. But he's still a damn good player. I would say, I mean, depending on your format, whether it's 1QB or not, I don't know, maybe a young running back. Like my first thought that comes to mind is like Clyde, or maybe his teammate Tony Pollard. Like, do you have a surplus at one? Do you have a surplus at running back by chance? Do you have strong options at running back? Could you afford to part with your? Could you afford to dangle your RB3, whoever that might be? If you have a surplus at one position, maybe that player plus, say, a third round pick. See if if you're giving up a running back, which is obviously a bit more of a premium as far as the positional value. Like a decent option at running back, maybe throw in a third round pick, see if you can get Gallup in a second, something like that. If it doesn't go for the second round pick, maybe swap, just eliminate the picks. And Pollard is your RB4. Okay, I mean, I would maybe start there. I guess I have a little bit of pause just because I know that the end is coming for Ezekiel Elliott. What we don't know is, will the Cowboys make Tony Pollard their feature back? We don't know. Will the Cowboys make Pollard their feature back whenever they move on from Zeke, which is going to be difficult to do for at least the next couple of years because of that contract, which again is another reason why the Cowboys are having to consider dropping or cutting Amari Cooper. It's because they've got too much money tied into Ezekiel Elliott. So Pollard's going to be capped for at least this next year, maybe 2023 as well. But I would maybe, Alex, if you really want Gallup, I would maybe dangle Pollard, try to sell the Gallup owner on, well, Pollard's going to take over for Zeke eventually. We don't actually know that, but use that as your selling point. Try to get a draft pick in return. Gallup and a pick for Pollard. Something like that. I don't know. How's that sound? Maybe something along those lines. And then depending on what your pick situation is this year, running backs are thin outside of the top three. But that might be a starting point that I would go for. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, if how that sounds, if that sounds like too much or too or not enough. But that would be my selling point, probably. Like, well, Pollard will take over for Ezekiel Elliott in a year or two. So he's going to be a starting running back. Gallup's only his team's wide receiver 2. Give me Gallup in a second, and I'll give you Pollard. If he says throw in something like a little extra, then it's up to you if you want to do that deal. But I would maybe start there. Grubblyheads, formerly known as Sutton. Yeah, so Sutton's trade value in Dynasty. Did go over it briefly a little bit. Depends on your situation. Do you hang on to Sutton or trade for a first rounder? I mean, do you feel like your team can compete? That's my first. Like, do you feel like your team can compete? I would say hold Sutton. Like, with this news, with he's going to be catching passes now from Russell Wilson. If you feel like you can compete, if you've got, say, you're looking at your situation and it's like, I got a top 6 team, or in a 12-team league, I got a top 6 team at least, and I should make the playoffs. I feel, as long as nothing hits the fan and nothing goes south for me, or not too much goes south for me, and I'm in decent shape as far as depth and all that good stuff, hold Sutton. If you're not liking your chances, if you're looking at the rest of your roster makeup and you're just like, I don't think it's going to happen for me this year, even with Sutton getting this significant QB upgrade, now's the time to ask for as much as you think you can get out of it. But if you're a contender and you say you're in there, and you got two 2022 firsts already. Hang on to Sutton. I would hang on to Sutton. He's still only 26 years old. He'll be 27 in October. So he's right at that apex age as far as production. Gets far and away the best quarterback of his career. Not even close. Well, his NFL career anyway. Not even close. Everyone's going to be high on Judy. There's reason to be high on Sutton too. These two are huge winners today. And short of, let's say, if somebody said, I'll give you, you already have two 2022 firsts, I would say, all right, give me a 2023 first and a 2024 first, and we can talk. Anything less and hang up the phone. See you later. I'm hanging on to my now 26-year-old wide receiver with wide receiver 1 upside. Wide receiver 2 safe floor, but wide receiver 1 upside. I would keep Sutton. I would keep Sutton if you're a contender. And then Alex, as far as Chubb, Kamara, Pollard, and so you got some good running back depth. The clock is I'll just say the clock is starting to tick as far as being able to get peak value for guys like Chubb and Kamara. But if you want to contend, then those guys need to stay on your team, at least for this year. But just want to throw that out there. The clock is ticking on those types of guys. But I mean, Connor could potentially go back with Arizona, and I think that would keep him a safe RB3 option for you if you did decide to move on from Pollard. I like Gus Edwards coming back. I don't know how effective he'll be, coming off an ACL. It's usually not the first year removed from injury. It's the second year that we feel good about. So Gus could be, especially starting out, a little slow out of the gate to begin the year. But you're riding Chubb, you're riding Kamara, depending on the situation you're in the draft. If you can get one of the top running backs, whether it's Hall, whether it's Spiller, or whether it's Walker, you could replenish your depth. And there's a couple of guys. There's a couple of guys that I've noticed on Twitter that some people are warming up to as far as late round options. Obviously, 2022 this year is not being as highly touted as the 2023 class, but there are some names. I apologize in advance if I'm missaying the name, but I think it's Pierre Strong. According to there are some models. I think it's JJ Zachariason is one who likes Pierre Strong. Somebody like that. Maybe that's like your replacement for Tony Pollard. If you can get him in, I don't think he's more than a 3rd round pick, but he's got some upside depending on his landing spot. So yeah, start with Pollard if you want Gallup, but just keep in mind in the back of your head, maybe for next year, if you're expecting to contend this year, maybe for next year, start thinking about sending out offers to see if anybody wants Chubb and Kamara. Get ready to hit that reset button on running backs. The thing is, hitting the reset button on running backs is not always a difficult pill to swallow, because you get the right one, or you put yourself in a position to get the right guys. They'll be good right away. So there you go. So John coming through with the stats, 4.37. You know what that is. And I can't take credit for this comparison. Again, I saw it on Twitter. That's that Elijah Mitchell territory. That's that Elijah Mitchell 40-yard dash territory. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, if you got a guy like Pollard, hell, if you think you could get Gallup and a first for Chubb or Kamara, maybe think about doing that. See if you can unload Chubb or Kamara right now, because Chubb is dealing. Kareem Hunt's back for one more year, and he's coming back healthy. So he's not going to get any passing down opportunities, or fewer than he would if he was just the guy, but he's not. Kareem Hunt's going to continue to mix in, and then Kamara's got his legal issues, which are still unsettled, but they're out there. If you want to get Gallup, see if the guy would do I'll give you Chubb for Gallup and a first, or just test the waters. test the waters. I know these guys are good. These are names at this point, and it's a tough pill to swallow to think about trading Chubb or Kamara. But I like Chubb. I was so high on Chubb coming into 2021, but like now's the time to see if you can get maximum value for a guy like Nick Chubb. Like, I'll give you Chubb for Gallup and a first. See what happens. And then you can keep Pollard in the event that he does, in fact, take over for Zeke sooner than expected. Hard to envision that, but we saw it last year. Pollard's already the more explosive running back on the Cowboys roster. So just spitballing. But if that doesn't go through, then sure, maybe, I would still see like, hey, okay, fine. My Pollard for your Gallup, something along those lines. And I missed that you had Swift. So that's awesome. He's an obvious going nowhere, untouchable on your roster. So you're super. Actually, Pollard, on any given week, Pollard could be like your RB5 if Connor's able to run it back in Arizona and have even half as good of a season as he did last year. Swift, hold. In fact, the fact that you have Swift makes me even more interested, Alex, in dangling options for Chubb and Kamara. Get out there and say, hey, who wants Chubb? Who wants Kamara? Or if you specifically are thinking if you're targeting the Gallup owner, if you like Gallup, give me Gallup and a first, and you can have, and your sell is, and you can have an RB1. See what happens. Worst thing they can say is no, right? See what happens. So that's that. If anybody's got any other questions about their dynasty team, happy to talk about it. Obviously, as a result of the fallout from today's all the transactions. Again, I feel like we didn't even get to half of the stuff that happened yet. Mentioned Rodgers and Adams, both coming back to Green Bay. Adams for at least one more year. Rodgers probably for 4, at least 2 or 3. On top of that, the Buccaneers franchise tag Chris Godwin. The Dolphins put the franchise tag on Mike Gesicki. I mentioned the Cowboys put the franchise tag on Dalton Schultz. So some big names are staying put. I know, just following Bucs beat reporters on Twitter, that the Bucs were trying hard to get a long-term deal done with Godwin. That didn't happen, obviously, with the franchise tag. It could still be negotiated, but for now, Godwin will play and he'll be fine. I just got a note that my connection is unstable, so hopefully everything's okay. If I'm laggy or jumpy at all, let me know. I'll try to refresh this or reboot this really quickly. But that did just go away. So hopefully the connection's okay. Don't want any jumpy technical issues, because I don't have John behind his laptop to do to run his technical magic for me. But he is in the chat hanging out with us. So appreciate that. So those are some of the franchise tags. We haven't even talked about Calvin Ridley. Which I feel I feel terrible about, because there have been a couple of people that I know follow this channel and follow us and talk to us about fantasy advice and strategy and all that good stuff. And as recently as last year, I know for a fact we advised holding Calvin Ridley, whether you're a buy, whether you're in a rebuild or a contender. But holy hell, has it been a wild 6 months for Calvin Ridley. And the rest of the combine, haven't even gotten to that yet. John, have you got any notes from the combine that you want to share? By all means, go for it. But I'll quickly touch on, if you have Ridley in Dynasty, he went on a bit of a tweet storm yesterday saying, I only got 1 year. And I feel like the insinuation is he intends to play whenever this suspension is over. The news that came out about Calvin Ridley yesterday, and this was from Schefter and Rappaport, was that he'll be suspended through at least the 2022 season. So could he miss games in 2023? We'll see. If you have Ridley at this point, if you've been holding, if you can afford the roster spot, I think I would just continue to hold. But if you're like, I'm done, I'm fed, I can't do this anymore, which I can hardly blame you. I don't want to tell you how to operate a team, your team specifically. But if you have Ridley and you're like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. This guy's unpredictable. This guy's unreliable. These past 6 months, just further proof of that. And you want to sell him off for whatever you can get. I don't know that I would necessarily do that, but I can hardly blame anybody who might be thinking along those lines. Disappointing situation down there in Atlanta. So so there's that. I can talk about the Falcons a little bit more if anybody wants to, but otherwise we can move on. John's got some 40 times for these guys, for some of these wide receivers. Chris Alave, that stock went sky high this past week at the combine. He had a fantastic performance, looked really good. Alave is going to be, I don't know where he's going, but I think he was originally getting mocked to go to a late first round. Maybe he dips to the second round. That ain't happening. He's a first round pick, easy, and he might go top 15. Teams they salivate when they see guys, when fast guy go zoom, right? Like good fast football player run fast. That's all that needs to happen. Just look at a guy like John Ross. I think he went like 9th overall when originally, with all mocks leading up to that draft, nobody had him going in the top 10. Alave's stock went way up. So I was originally thinking it kind of like the NFL draft, he might be like a late first round pick in dynasty rookie drafts. No, he's going to be, I would say, I don't know that he necessarily leapfrogs as far as dynasty. I don't know if he necessarily leapfrogs Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Treylon Burks, or his teammate, probably Garrett Wilson, but he's over everybody else. He's over everybody else. I mean, I would say by now, I was thinking maybe before the combine, okay, maybe Alave is like the 10th, 11th, 12th pick. Maybe he's one of the first picks of the second round. Nah, he's going to be I think he's going to be the 6th or 7th player off the boards in rookie drafts now. And there's going to be people who fall in love with him that take him even higher. Alave, massive winner. From the combine. Pickens looks good as well. I'm very interested in him. Could be a late, I was originally thinking okay, you might be able to get him in the second round. That's probably going to take a late first round pick now for Pickens. Wilson was already being in dynasty rookie drafts being mocked as a top 5 pick. I don't think that changes. I'm still very much intrigued by Garrett Wilson. Very excited to see what he does depending on the landing spot. But yeah, some deep, that's it for all the talk about 2023. There's more than a few good wide receivers in this class. So I think 2022 is going to run 15 deep or so. And then Pierre Strong in the third. Cakewalk championship. I mean, as far as, I guess, Crumply, as you're probably talking about Ridley as far as hanging on to Michael Thomas. Here's the thing about Michael Thomas. We're getting good news about Michael Thomas so far this offseason. So if you have him, hold. Do not sell Michael Thomas because you're only going to get pennies you're still most likely only going to get pennies on the dollar in any offer for Michael Thomas. I would not trade Michael Thomas if I had him. I put a video out about him a couple of weeks ago. So it's maybe a little dated at this point just because, again, it's a couple weeks old. But by all accounts, he's on speaking terms again with the Saints, which is good. He was in New York during Super Bowl week, continuing to rehab the ankle. Sounds like that is progressing well. Sounds like things are going well in his recovery. And again, like I just mentioned, he is on speaking terms with the team again, which is really good. Yes, he does not have Drew Brees or Sean Payton anymore to look forward to, but with Alvin Kamara potentially looking at, let's just say, and I'm not judge, jury, executioner when it comes to the NFL, so I don't know what they're going to do, but let's just say Alvin Kamara gets slapped with a 6-game suspension to start the year. Michael Thomas is going to see 12 to 15 targets a game. I don't care who the quarterback is, and I don't care what they do in the draft. Yes, a lot of now the Saints are being mocked to get, they could get a wide receiver. They could draft one of the quarterbacks if one of them falls. Not that the 18th. I think they have the 18th pick. The Saints do. That's not falling for the top 3 quarterbacks in what's generally being considered a weak quarterback class. But if they end up with Corral or if they end up with Pickett, am I super inspired by that? But am I super inspired by Taysom Hill? No. Corral and Pickett can't be any worse than Hill, or Hill's a better, Swiss Army knife, but they can't be worse than Trevor Siemian. Come on. And Michael Thomas should continue to get peppered with a lot of short and intermediate targets. Those are easier throws to make no matter who you are. We could be looking at, if Michael Thomas is healthy, we could be looking at 160, 170 targets for the season. The vibes are better on Michael Thomas right now, for sure, than they are about Calvin Ridley. So to that point, yes, if you've held this long, keep holding, baby. Keep holding. I would not. He's the type of guy, Michael Thomas is, that I would not sell if I had him. You're gonna have to, right now, today in March, you're gonna have to give me way more than I already know you want to give up for Michael Thomas. Because just a couple of years ago, it was the overall wide receiver 1, and he's still not that old. If he were 31, okay, maybe it's a little different, right? He's in his 30s, coming off an ankle injury. Before you know it, it's going to be 2 years from now. He's going to be 33, 34 years old. He's only 29. I thought he was maybe 28. He's 29. Yes, for most receivers, you hear the age 29 and you think to yourself, okay, he's on the downward trend, right? I'm not necessarily as interested in buying a guy who's over the age of 27. But not everybody has ever been, for fantasy purposes, the overall wide receiver 1 for a season. Michael Thomas has that under his belt. So I'm continuing to hold, and I feel much better about having Michael Thomas than I do about Calvin Ridley. So, yeah, you're good. You're all right there. Back to Alave. As far as Alave, coming out of the wide receiver factory that is Ohio State. There you go, Michael Thomas. Another shout out for Michael Thomas. Alave looks like a much more polished route runner. He's not just like Tavon Austin and John Ross is just go run by these guys, which you can do in college. Just go run. You're just faster than these dudes. Just go outrun them. Alave is much more polished than that. He's an excellent route runner. He's got good hands. By all accounts, he's a very smart player, very smart football player. Alave knows where he needs to be. He knows how to read defenses. He knows where he needs to go on any given play. I feel just fine about Olave's prospects for a very good NFL career. So again, I have no reason to believe that he won't be the 6th or 7th pick at least, or at worst, in dynasty rookie drafts. It was a late first, early second before the combine. He's squarely a mid-range first round pick. I would say at the latest not just in the NFL draft, but also in dynasty rookie drafts as well. Chris Olave is going to be very interesting. In fact, again, if you play best ball, now I'm curious to see what Olave's ADP is. Because remember, if you play best ball, now's the time to dip your toes in, because these rookies, man, their ADP is only going to climb. It's a good time to jump in and see if you can nab these guys at a discount. Olave's ADP is about 106. Okay. So you got to spend like a 10th round pick on him, but I don't know. That's about where Jalen Waddle was going this time last year. Slightly different, different skill set, different players, but that's not that expensive. Depending on the landing spot, Alave will have, I don't know, he doesn't have wide receiver 1 upside for the season, but he's got upside to have his wide receiver 1 stretches, like a Jalen Waddle throughout the year, like an Elijah Moore, like for short bursts, for short stints, right? And again, just as a rookie, that's beautiful. That's exactly what you're hoping for. A couple of wide receiver 1 weeks here and there. So 105 without knowing the landing spot. Could take a shot there. Take a shot on that. Wouldn't be too bad. So combine's officially in the books. We're good there. The franchise tag deadline is officially passed today. So next is free agency. So we'll see where, see what happens there. Obviously some big names are off the board now. Godwin's not going to a new team. Devonte Adams is not going to a new team. Mike Gesicki's not going to a new team. I didn't even mention Mike Williams got himself a nice little three-year, $60 million extension earlier today. So Mike Williams stays in Los Angeles. That offense stays for the most part intact. They may still look to acquire a tight end. They might look to sign a tight end. Replace, 38, 39-year-old Jared Cook. So, see what happens in LA, but Justin Herbert gets a big time weapon back, or doesn't lose one. Let's put it that way. So, Iron, you got some young horses, don't you? Devonte and Judy. So, congrats to you, man. You have Ridley. Look, this situation just sucks with Calvin Ridley. I still am of the belief that Ridley will, and we talked about this on this channel. Will Calvin Ridley play again? I think he will. If the league doesn't go ballistic and only keeps this to a 1-year suspension, because again, remember Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter both said that the report was that it was, quote, at least, unquote, the 2022 season. So leaving the door open that he could miss more games. He could be suspended for more than just the 2022 season. I think this suspension I feel like this is long enough, because again, and we can only take what Ridley said at face value, but he said he only bet $1,500. I know he broke the rules. Not trying to say that he shouldn't be suspended, but anymore, just, I don't know, seems like overkill. My point is, if Calvin Ridley wants to play football again, and by all, it sounds like he does. He tweeted a couple days ago, football is life. And he tweeted yesterday after the news about the suspension that he's, only getting 1 year. I think he's insinuating he's going to play again. So, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow this year. Yes, it's dead weight that you have to carry on your team this year. But it's like, I'm just going to hold. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I personally wouldn't sell him for pennies on the dollar. Some people might if they're fed up with him. At this point, it's hard to blame anybody who over the past 6 months has their patience has run out with Ridley. Wait a little longer. try to get through the 2022 season. I mean, again, the only situation where I'm trading Calvin Ridley, I'm waiting till the middle of the season. If I'm a contender, I got a kick-ass team. I'm a top 4 roster. I'm looking really strong, not just for the playoffs, but I like my chances to win the league. Maybe Ridley's filler in a trade to get a nice piece. Maybe. Like I would throw in something, and then Ridley's the the prize for a team who, maybe they're good, but they don't, they feel like they got a better shot in 2023, so they want to take a chance on a guy like Calvin Ridley, something like that. And you get a piece that helps you this year, maybe do that, but wait until the season starts before we even start entertaining that idea. That's what I would do. So, yep. As far as for going back to some of the rookies, if Jameson Williams is a borderline second rounder, I don't think he's a borderline second rounder. He's not a first rounder. He might be he'll be a first. It sounds like he will still be a first rounder in the NFL draft. I think like most mocks are still mocking him to go at the end of the first round. Obviously, we're just talking about mock drafts. We don't know about what's going to actually happen. But we've seen teams take shots on players who they know aren't going to be able to play right away because of an injury issue, but the talent is too tantalizing to pass up. So we could still see Williams go in the end of the first round. I don't think I don't think those chances have died. But as far as rookie drafts, he's probably, more likely to be a faller. Even if he gets taken, say, in the 28th, 29th, 30th pick range of the NFL draft, he could fall to the second round. One, because we saw so many good wide receiver performances at the combine, but also two, he's an injury risk. He's a bit of an unknown coming off of the injury. And we don't know his landing spot. If the landing spot isn't good, then that'll further drive him down. We'll see what happens there. I am still very much interested in Jameson Williams. I mean, I can't put him ahead of guys like Alave at this point. Alave has leapfrogged him. Pickens might have leapfrogged him. I think landing spot's going to be a little more, have a little bit more of an impact there, but Alave has safely leapfrogged Jameson Williams. I got him for everybody in every format. So, that's a feather. That's more of a feather in Alave's cap than it is a knock against Jameson Williams. Williams just can't compete right now. He can't work out right now, or at least at the combine, or showcase what he can do, with the ACL having been only 2 months ago. So I'm still intrigued by the talent. But he might fall to the second round of rookie drafts. So let's see what happens there. If there's anything else, this has been a busy day in the NFL. If there's anything else anybody wants to touch on, happy to do it. I feel like of everything that happened, I least talked about. There's not too much to talk about with the Packers. You can have the same exact expectations for the Packers that you would have regardless, but I guess the team that I haven't talked to about as much, like that is directly involved in everything that went down, is Seattle. We talked a little bit about DK Metcalf and how there might be a buy low window opportunity for him, but I'm not expecting. I'm still not expecting, unless again, unless your house looks like Patrick Starr's house and you live under a rock. I'm not expecting DK Metcalf's value to go down that much because again, he played well with Geno Smith, but the rest of the Seattle offense. I love Tyler Lockett. I have loved Tyler Lockett. He's that's my type of guy. I feel like he may have been submarined by this. Lockett, I think, got submarined by this. If you have Lockett in Dynasty, You probably have to hold. No one's going to feel confident with him. Um, again, and I guess I did mention this earlier. He had an incredible cerebral connection with Russell Wilson. One that doesn't happen all the time and takes years to develop, right? Just by playing with each other for 5, 6, 7 seasons. That's gone. He's not going to have that anymore. I am worried about Lockett having potentially been submarined by this news. If you're a believer in Lockett, you should be able to get him for cheap. I'm not sure that that's a move I necessarily want to make without knowing for sure who the quarterback is going to be for Seattle. It's probably going to be a bad team. You got the defending Super Bowl champs in your division. You got, the other opponent in the NFC Championship game in your division. And then there's the Cardinals, who also made the playoffs and still have their quarterback in Kyler Murray, who, by the way, put all of his Cardinals pictures back up on Instagram today. So looks like the marriage is getting mended. Yeah. Bad team. I mean, could be good for garbage time opportunities, but if the Seahawks are trailing, could be good for DK Metcalf, could be good for Tyler Lockett. The Wilson trade hurts Lockett the most. He's the biggest loser of today. I was trying not to use the word loser, but you know what I mean. Tyler Lockett is the one who suffers the most from everything that happened today. So, which is a shame because he's been boom bust, but he can be a really fun player to have for his weeks where he pops off. So, but going back to Mike Williams, the cost to acquire him in Dynasty. Yeah. So the Chargers just committed to him and he's got Justin Herbert throwing him the football, right? He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 at the beginning of October. So he's at his apex age, but if he follows the same trend as many others, starting to come down a little bit, right? So right now his trade value is up. It's up because the Chargers just committed to him, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the league throwing him the ball. Okay, you have Lockett. Okay, yeah. I mean, I love Lockett. I do. He's been a fun. He can be a little frustrating here and there, but he'll win you weeks every now and then throughout the season. He's just a really good football player. He's just a really good receiver. But yeah, he gets kind of submarined by this news. Mike Williams is probably going to cost a little more right now than I would be willing to part with because the Chargers committed to him. That's a decent idea, though, John, about trying to see what you can do about getting Keenan Allen. Maybe the asking price for Keenan Allen came down like a tick. It's not going to come by a lot because this is a wide receiver one that we're talking about, a borderline wide receiver one that we're talking about. But he's older. Allen's a little bit older, but again, is a perennial low-end wide receiver one. Whereas Williams exploded early in the year and was like the wide receiver, I think, 2 on the season behind Cooper Kupp. The difference was Kupp kept up to his production and Williams didn't. Williams a little bit more boom bust. That's an understatement. I was about to say a little more boom bust than Cooper Kupp. Yeah, no kidding, Nick. There's that hard-hitting analysis for you. So, but regardless, I think Williams' asking price is probably up a bit now. Because we know for sure he's staying in the offense. He's staying with Justin Herbert, who is fantastic. I kind of like the idea of maybe if you want to try to get a wide receiver, maybe pivot to Keenan Allen, and you can do the whole thing. You can sell well, Williams is back. He's probably plateaued. If the Keenan Allen owner is not that good of a team, Allen should be a piece that they're looking to sell. If they're a good team, if they're a contender, then you're probably not going to get Allen. But you could try to do, depending on if you need a tight end. Sticking with that team, Donald Parham, you could do worse than a roll of the dice on Donald Parham, because the Chargers, everybody was expecting the Chargers to be in play for one of the premier options at the tight end free agent class. And two of them are not available anymore. Mike Gesicki got franchise tagged. Dalton Schultz got franchise tag. You could do worse than throwing a third-round pick out there for like Donald Parham. Something to think about. I know it's not a wide receiver, but just want to toss that out there into the universe. So we'll see what happens there. The run from Dameon Pierce. I don't think I saw that, Iron, but I'll have to check that out. I can take a look at this. He had a pretty good. I mean, I know he had a pretty decent day at the combine. He's a little older. He's 22. Was he a senior? Was Pierce a senior? So he's 22 years old, but I mean, he's got the size. He's 5'11", 205 pounds. Like, he can make it in the NFL. I did not see the highlight though. Yeah, so yeah, John, that's a good idea to, for anybody in the Chargers, see if you can take a shot on Keenan Allen. It just depends on, does the Keenan Allen person want to part ways, And the Chargers, yeah, I mean, they could draft a tight end. Some of the free agent tight end options, Gesicki and Schultz were the big ones. So I would assume they're not going to get Gronkowski. Like, maybe get Zach Ertz. They could bring Jared Cook back. But yeah, I mean, obviously these are all options where, regardless, if you were to bring one of these guys in, drafting a guy might make a lot of sense. So is Uzoma? Oh, and I mean, like a guy like Ty Conklin is also a free agent if they wanted to go that route. So yeah, the Chargers will for sure be in play to draft a tight end. But again, you could sell that to the Parham owner and say, here's a third-round pick, a late third-round pick for Donald Parham, who has a non-zero chance of starting for Los Angeles in 2022. Maybe not super high, but it's not 0%. He could start for them. And yeah, Everett is a free agent as well. I think he signed was it just a 1-year deal with Seattle last year? So he'll almost assuredly be moving on. I have a hard time believing he sticks around with Seattle. Check really quick on Gerald Everett. I think he's a free agent. He is. Yeah, he is. Signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with Seattle in 2021. So he is free to move on to his third team in 3 years. Caught 4 touchdowns last year. I'll attribute some of that to having, Russell Wilson missing a significant amount of time last year. The offense was kind of sputtering with Geno Smith, wasn't as good. Seattle just wasn't a good team in general in 2021. So could be a few factors that went against it. But yeah, Everett's a free agent. Maybe shoot. I guess at that point you're hoping that maybe like a team like the Chargers sign Gerald Everett. That could totally happen. And I would be just fine with that for Gerald Everett catching passes from Justin Herbert. It's wild to me that this AFC West, this collection of quarterbacks, does the AFC West have 4 of the top 15 quarterbacks in the league? I think they do. They definitely have 3 in the top, say, 12. And it depends on what your feelings are about Derek Carr. This division is going to be nuts. This division is going to be really good. Depending on where you have Derek Carr, is one of the most ridiculous collections of quarterbacks for a single division that I can remember. Those AFC West games are going to have a lot of primetime games. Yeah, Derek Carr had himself a nice 2021. He is better than public perception gives him credit for. He definitely is, especially considering everything the Raiders went through last year. Like all the off-field stuff that team dealt with. And they still made the playoffs. They beat Justin Herbert in a winner-take-all Week 18 game. That game was nuts. That game was a pseudo playoff game. That game kickstarted the ridiculous playoffs that was the 2021 playoffs. Was that ridiculous Sunday night game between the Raiders and the Chargers. That set the tone for the rest of the playoffs being incredible, being absolutely amazing. But anyway, yeah, to that point. But Derek Carr, I mean, he lost his head coach. He lost his wide receiver 1. The offensive line was not good. They still made the playoffs. I think he was by analytics measures, he was one of the better deep ball throwers last year in the NFL. Derek Carr was. Didn't have Darren Waller for huge chunks and stretches of the season and was not the tight end that he had been the past couple of years. So, yeah. I mean, yep. Got that one. Yeah, Waller missed a ton of time. Kenyon Drake, whatever, he pass catching running back that they signed in free agency, I think missed the rest of the season after like week 7 or 8. So, I mean, you got to give your kudos, you got to give your props to Derek Carr. He proved he's a top. He is firmly. I'm not sure how high I'm willing to go on him, but he's firmly in the top half as far as starting quarterbacks go in this league. It's a damn good AFC West. Best collection of quarterbacks I can think of in recent memory. So, yeah, get ready for a lot of primetime games that feature those teams. Chiefs Broncos on Sunday night. It's going to like around week 8 or week 9. You know it's coming. You know it's happening. Or you get to see Russ against Mahomes. Ooh, it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. This is just the first big day of the NFL offseason. This is just the first one. There's going to be others. We got the start of free agency, whatever other trades. Like the NFL, excuse me. The NFL definitely as a collective has been more forward thinking as far as trades than they've like these past couple of years than they have been in the past like 40 years. There were never any big trades. This never happened. At least not with like they were maybe they were names, but they weren't getting traded when they still had prime years left. It's awesome. It's fun. This is gonna be a lot of fun. The rest of this offseason. We'll continue, of course, we have work to do on our side as far as putting out videos about the rookies after the combine. Of course, having some reaction to the news from today outside of this stream. If there's any videos that you would like us to do, or you would like us to see us do, that would maybe something that you can kind of continue to, if you need to like check it out, and it's like, this is easy for me to like go back and take a look. Like, okay, what's the thought process here on this guy? Whether it's Sutton, whether it's Judy, whether it's one of the tight ends, whether it's Noah Fant or whether it's Alberto or who else. We can absolutely put something together for any of those videos. We'll of course continue to pump that stuff out. Now that we really have some news trickling in about the NFL. So it's going to be fun. And John, yeah, you got it. If in case anybody else was hopping in later or is just catching up with us on the first time or today, John is visiting family. So while he's hanging out with us in the chat, he's not on camera today. He'll be back with us on Thursday. So obviously safe travels, dude. Hopefully the family time was good. So I'll keep it here for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. If there's anything else anybody wants to talk about, if there's any other questions about the events of today, if not, we can absolutely put some videos out. I know there were questions about the dynasty values of guys like Cortland Sutton, about guys like Jerry Jeudy, guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant, all these names, and then the Cowboys. They're in the news because they're always in the news. If Amari Cooper gets dropped, what's Michael Gallup's dynasty value? So we can do it. We can do videos on all these guys. That doesn't even mention all of the rookies, the risers like Chris Alave, the potential fallers like a Jameson Williams and Kyron Williams. We didn't even talk about Kyron Williams today. Actually, that's the last thing I want to quickly touch on, because this was an interesting situation that happened with Kyron Williams at the combine. Prior to the combine, I think Kyron Williams, I think it's fair to say he was kind of like the general consensus RB4, a distant RB4, but a consensus RB4 this year. I had not yet warmed up to Kyron Williams prior to the combine, and there were multiple people that had joined us in other streams and had talked about him, and they were concerned about the fumbles that he had dealt with in college. Like, did he have the makeup? Did he have the physical frame to make it in the NFL, even in like a change of pace role? He's of like a Giovanni Bernard mold as far as physical stature. Was potentially originally being mocked as a high second round pick in dynasty rookie drafts, and then he ran a 4.65, or was it a 4.7 in the 40? It was low, especially for a guy of his frame. You want to see a guy like that be able to run fast. Little guy goes zoom, right? It didn't happen. I saw on Twitter, I didn't verify any of this, but something to just kind of throw out there into the universe, that Kyron Williams was potentially hurt, was potentially working out at the combine, not 100%. So he's going to fall. His stock is going to fall. His landing spot, we'll see what happens, but he's probably going to tumble down draft boards. The 4.65, the 4.7 40, whatever it wasn't good relative to expectations for a guy like that. So I'm not saying that I'm necessarily going to be in on Kyron Williams if he falls, but if he's like a late second round pick in rookie drafts now, maybe he tumbles to the early third, I might be a little more interested in taking a chance on him because the capital is just nowhere close to the top of the second round. But if he was running injured, let's put some pause on Kyron Williams and let's see how he does at his pro day. And now the last thing I'll say here about that is, if you do in any way, shape, or form believe in Kyron Williams, if you're one of those people, maybe see what you can do about trading for. See what you can do about acquiring like a late second round pick this year. Just see. If you're in on Kyron Williams, I think his stock is going to go down. See if you can pick up some extra ammunition in the form of, say, like a late second round pick. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily in on Kyron Williams, but as it turns out, if he is injured coming out of the combine, if he does better at his pro day, and if the landing spot is anywhere decently, anywhere decent, that could be the ammo that you need to get him and take a shot on a running back. So just wanted to throw that out there. Iron had one more question on Bryan Edwards, and then I'm probably going to wrap this up coming up here shortly at the bottom of the hour. If you ask John, I'm not sure if John is still in here. Again, I know he's traveling and might be in between flights. But John, I think, and again, I don't want to speak for him, is like all the way out on Bryan Edwards after for a long time being all the way in on Bryan Edwards, being a big believer in the talent and the prospect. I'm not all the way out on Bryan Edwards. And again, we just gave Derek Carr his flowers, and rightfully so. He had a really strong year. Bryan Edwards was seeding routes run to the likes of Zay Jones. So obviously that's going to sour people's thoughts on Bryan Edwards, and rightfully so. Zay Jones, I think, had like 7 or 8 catches this year on the season. And Bryan Edwards was wildly inconsistent. Caught like a long, almost touchdown pass week 1. The hype was there, and then kind of, it flatlined, and they had another one big game here and there, and in between some duds and 0 catch performances. Wildly inconsistent, right? Hardly someone that you can confidently put stock in at this point. He's still pretty young. He's 23. He'll be 24 in November. And he's going into, is it his 3rd year? I think he'll be entering his 3rd year. I think that's correct. I mean, remember, with some of these wide receivers, yes, we're getting more. Yeah, it will be his 3rd year. 2022 will be Bryan Edwards' 3rd year. We're getting more and more used to seeing guys, wide receivers, I mean, play well right away. Which, and in the past, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't see that happen a whole lot with wide receivers. They often took a couple of years to groom. We still see that now. Like inconsistent. Maybe they're good, but there's inconsistent play. Like they're showing promise, but they're also having weeks here and there where they're not having a great, they're not having a great season on the whole. Like maybe they're flashing, but the numbers, at least on paper, it doesn't look like they're coming through. They're delivering. I'm not ready to give up hope on Bryan Edwards. I'm still a believer that he can still be a productive wide receiver in this league. And the opportunity is right there in front of him. Yes, could the Raiders spend a decent amount of draft capital on wide receiver? Of course. And they probably should, because Henry Ruggs is not coming back. They lost Nelson Aguilar in free agency back in 2021. It was like replaced with Zay Jones. That's not a long-term solution. The Raiders can and should spend draft capital on a wide receiver this year. But that doesn't mean that Bryan Edwards can't have a significant role in this offense in 2022. This offensive line, the Raiders' offensive line, has nowhere to go but up. And I want to bring that up because, John, you said you don't think his skill set meshes well with Carr. I would be willing to bet that I'm not sure that we have a definitive answer on that. Derek Carr, I mentioned a little earlier, by every metric, you look at the analytics, I don't have the specific numbers right in front of me, but Derek Carr was a good deep ball thrower in 2021 and has proven he took more shots downfield. He was kind of looked at, Derek Carr was, as like a conservative quarterback early in his career. He didn't take the shots. He played it safe. He was a boring, like maybe game manager. Maybe he was a little better than a game manager. His second year, I think after like his second year, he broke out, I think his second year, but then he broke his leg. Right? He broke his leg. Maybe took a little bit of time getting back. Could have been in his head. You break a bone, that would be in my head. He played very well this year. Carr did. And not just considering his not great situation. I think he played well regardless of it. Um, if he's taking shots, if Derek Carr is proving that he can be a deep ball thrower in this league, that he can take his shots downfield and have success throwing the football down the field, I think we just need this Raiders offensive line to be a little bit better, just like a little better, which shouldn't be hard to do because they were bottom 3 in the league. They were like Cincinnati Bengals territory, which we all know by now. They sorely need to improve their offensive line. The Raiders do too. If the Raiders can get even marginal upgrades at the O-line play, give Carr that extra half a second to be able to wind up and uncork it, I'm not sure Bryan Edwards isn't a fit in this offense. I'm not ready to give up on him. I'm sure some people are, and I understand that. Obviously, the production has been very up and down, but he's still only 23. Still very young. Not every player hits right away in the NFL. Remember, this is the best of the damn best. Some players, it takes a little bit of time. And we still see that reigning true for wide receivers. If you're a third-year running back and you haven't worked out yet, that's not a good sign. But if you're a third-year wide receiver and you're still figuring things out, that's normal. Like, or it's not uncommon, is what I should say. As far as like the Tim Patrick type, sure. I mean, I think he's got some upside. I think Edwards has some upside. I think he still has a chance to work out in this league. If you have him, you're not going to get anything no one's going to offer you anything good for Bryan Edwards. I would just hold. Yeah, Iron, if you have him, I would just hold. You're not going to get, like, what's somebody going to offer you? A third-round pick? I'll just take my shot with Bryan Edwards one more year. See if he can figure it out. And in a situation where he has all the opportunity. He has all the opportunity. Because no matter who the Raiders bring in at wide receiver, it's going to be a rookie. They're not getting Devonte Adams. Every Raiders fan was hopeful that they would get Devonte Adams. That's not happening. So, they can't sign Mike Williams away from the Chargers. He just got a contract. They can't bring in Chris Godwin. He got franchise tagged. So, yeah, are there some other wide receivers out there on the market that they could explore? Sure. And maybe they should probably bring in a veteran. But Bryan Edwards' opportunity is still there. Regardless of who they end up bringing in, Bryan Edwards will continue to have an opportunity. I would hold because you're not going to get anything of value for him right now. Anything that's going to make you feel good about it, like, okay, cool. I could flip him for a third-round pick. Great. I'll just hold Bryan Edwards and take a shot on the 23 and take a shot on your, a young 23-year-old who still has some upside, still has some potential. So we'll see what happens there. Jaws, what's going on? It said Chark. Is this about Brian, like a Bryan Edwards trade? Is that what this, like, I'll give you Chark, I'll give you my my young, but like so far hasn't all put it together wide receiver for your still young, hasn't put it all together wide receiver. Yes, I mean, sure. I think both still have interesting upside. They flashed potential. I'll tell you what, Chark's situation is better now than it was a year ago. Oh, gotcha. The best free agent wide receivers out there. Gotcha. Yeah, like you're taking a shot on another young guy who has potential, but hasn't quite met his potential yet, right? So, sure. I mean, they could go that route, but then, and I have liked DJ Chark. That shouldn't keep Bryan Edwards from having the opportunity to take advantage of. Will he? We'll see. But again, being only 23 years old, thrust into a role that he was probably not ready for last year, I'm willing to roll the dice one more year on Edwards. John is a Chark guy. John likes DJ Chark. And yeah, he was good with Gardner Minshew. It's been a couple of years, but I think Chark is still he's still only 25. Like, Chark is not old. He's had some injury issues. He's had some inconsistency to deal with. He's been in a terrible situation in Jacksonville, right? About as bad as it gets. And then last year he missed. He missed. When did he go down? He suffered an injury that cost him the rest of his season at some point. But even if he had played through it, the Jags were a mess last year. They were an absolute train wreck. There's nowhere to go. You want to talk about like there's nowhere to go but up. there's nowhere to go but up for Jacksonville. This time for real, because they are without Urban Meyer. So does Chark move on to greener pastures and maybe find himself in a more favorable situation? Shouldn't be hard. The Raiders would certainly present an upgrade as far as situation for Chark. So yeah, if you have Chark in Dynasty, yeah, I mean, at this point, he's a hold as well. It hasn't worked out for him the past couple of years, but outside of James Robinson, who has done well in Jacksonville the past couple of years? Jamal Agnew, I guess. Jamal Agnew, who was a converted cornerback. So yeah, okay. So he went down. Chark went down week 3. So yeah, so he lost the entire season, and we can't even say with any confidence that he would have done well had he stayed healthy. And that's not necessarily a knock on Chark. It was like everybody else, a victim of a god awful circumstance, which was the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars. So yeah, honestly, if he's an unrestricted free agent, I kind of like that move for a team like Vegas. They have all the need in the world for a wide receiver. So that would actually make some sense. Like, it just, Derek Carr, again, he proved he can throw the ball deep in 2021. 2021. And Chark can operate as a deep threat. So that would help. That would give them a veteran option to pair with Bryan Edwards. Say they draft a rookie relatively high, one of their first, not their, maybe depends. It could be their first round pick. But if they get a guy, they add him. Now all of a sudden the Raiders have a little bit of a wide receiver core again. Yeah, and and Chark could just go back to Jacksonville, and I have no reason to believe Trevor Lawrence can't take a second-year leap. Again, they were at rock bottom last year. There's nowhere to go but up, and Doug Peterson is an upgrade over Urban Meyer. There's no argument there. There's none, because we saw what transpired this past year, and Doug's got a bit of a track record in dating back to his days in Philly. So it's an upgrade no matter how you slice it. The situation is an upgrade in Jacksonville no matter how you slice it. Now, the players still have to get out there and produce and perform, but reason for hope that for all of the players in Jacksonville, because everybody was a disappointment last year. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, to kind of tie this all up and wrap a bow on this conversation, all this to say, Iron, and anybody else who may have Bryan Edwards, I don't have any Bryan Edwards shares myself, not in Dynasty. I've yet to do a best ball yet. What is wrong with me? It is March and I have not done a single best ball yet. I need to change that. Point is, I don't have any Bryan Edwards shares. I'm not giving up on Bryan Edwards personally. So as a neutral party who has no stock in Bryan Edwards, hold. And you can say the same, a guy like Chark, you can say the same thing about. Might as well hold, because you're only going to get pennies on the dollar for these types of guys in any type of deal. And if you believe in their upside, just hang on to them. So, yeah. Like I mentioned a short while ago, with the combine in the books, with free agency upon us, can definitely expect a few extra videos from us on the channel. In addition to these live streams, if anybody's new here, if anybody's finding us for the first time, We host live streams on this channel every Tuesday, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. John usually joins us. He's BMBU in the chat. He's visiting family today. He'll be back full go on Thursday. That's all off season long. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then, now that we've got the combine in the books, now that we've got this huge day of news that transpired, there will be some additional video content out on the channel as well. That you can kind of fall back to. You don't have to go like searching for it from a replay of a live stream if you want our take on any one specific player. So yeah, the offseason is officially in full swing. Today pretty much confirmed that. Josh, you got T-Law at 111 last year. Okay, so this must be a one quarterback. This must be a one quarterback dynasty league. Otherwise, I'd have to imagine he would have gone 101. And you're picking in the second spot this year. Hey man, you could go any which way. You can go any, if you could, well, obviously the first overall pick depends on the needs of that player. But if they take Breece Hall, you can go Treylon Burks. If they take Treylon Burks, you can go Breece Hall. Or if you want to play, I think a lot of people, at least from what I've seen in Twitter circles, Twitter conversations, is that Breece Hall is the high floor play and Spiller is the high ceiling play. So it just depends on, how big of a swing for the fences do you want to take? Do you think like, oh, I'll be right back in it. I just need somebody steady to get me through, or I just need like some steady option at running back. That could be Hall. If you like your chances, but maybe you need, a home run shot, a moonshot, you could go Spiller. I would be at this point. I think Treylon Burks is going to go 101. Definitely in one quarterback formats, maybe in super flex formats. As we all know at this point, it's kind of like there's three options at quarterback this year, but none of them are like, this guy's a slam dunk, right? Burks might be the 101 in all formats. Maybe. But that sets you up to take the running back of your choice. So, and with some injury, like with and so you have Derrick Henry, who's an aging player at this point. What you should do? I'm just like marinate, stew on this one a little bit. You might call me crazy, but during the season, if Henry starts to get back to form, but also maybe if you're looking at your team and you're just like, I'm not sure if this is my year, the time is coming to start thinking like, let me get peak value for Derrick Henry. Only if you don't think you can contend this year. If you're cruising through, midway point through the season, you're 5-1, 4-2, you're sitting pretty, you're like, my team's good. Obviously ignore that. But if Derrick Henry's playing well, but you're like 2-4 or something like that, you're struggling along, you're like, I don't know if this is my year. Something to consider. But yeah, sometimes when it rains, it pours, man. Like, I'd almost rather get slammed with the injury bug all at once in one fell swoop than like here and there. I'm missing this guy, and then 6 weeks later I'm missing that guy, and then next year it's two other dudes, and so maybe your fortunes turn around and everybody stays healthy, at least on your team, going into the season. So okay, and so you still got reliable vets at wide receiver that you can kind of hang your hat on. Sounds like Kyler Murray is maybe not sounds like, but he put his Instagram pictures back up of all the Cardinals. So maybe things are maybe the dust is settling on any issues that they had. Everybody's good. The marriage in Arizona is good. That's good for DeAndre Hopkins. He has his quarterback, no problem. He just needs to stay healthy. Allen Robinson needs to just, end up in any semi-decent situation, and he should be fine. But yeah, see what happens. It looks like it's a little older team that you got. With Henry, with Hopkins, it's a little bit older, but that doesn't mean you can't compete for a championship, So see what happens. I think that's about it for me tonight. If there's not any other questions, I'm happy to, if there's any others that trickle in over the next couple of minutes, I'm happy to take them right before I shut this down. Wild day in the NFL. Lots going on. So, of course, appreciate everybody that joined me today. Always fun hanging out. Always fun talking fantasy with everybody. You had Cup. Well, yeah. I mean, what can you do? It's like sometimes you have all the pieces come into place. Sometimes the chips don't necessarily fall your way. Cup's still guy that you can feel good about as far as like a top 3 option at wide receiver. So all you need is a couple of pieces to stay healthy, and you should be all right. Should be okay. But anyway, if there's not any other questions, and I can take them over the next couple of minutes if they come in. Again, appreciate everybody hanging out. Appreciate everybody joining us and supporting the channel. Always fun coming in and just talking fantasy with you guys. John will be back on Thursday. Who knows what'll happen between now and then, and as far as the NFL. But sometimes with this league, when it rains, it pours, and it poured today as far as news and updates. So that was pretty wild day. It was difficult to focus on work. Let's put it that way. Was staring at Twitter every 5 seconds today, and lots of text messages exchanged with friends. So it's a fun day for the NFL. This is what they do. They grab us. They just they got us. Like one move and we're hooked for the day. But that is it for me today. That's it for me tonight. Thanks everybody for hanging out again. Thanks for everybody for contributing in the chat. John, appreciate holding it down in the chat and talking to people, answering questions through the chat as you could. Again, he's traveling today after visiting some family. So appreciate coming in and holding it down in the chat room. We will be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, talking about whatever happens between now and then in the NFL. And of course, the recorded videos will start to trickle in a little bit more now that we're post combine with free agency upon us, and with some news and transactions, actual moves happening in the NFL. So it's a fun. The offseason is officially in full force, and we're here for it. Come hang out with us, talk fantasy, pretty much all off season long. So looking forward to it. Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a fantastic night. See you Thursday.